Hi friends, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and today we are making that cute little bunny you saw in the opening. That is your March 2024. It's in the box subscription club, and I don't have my paperwork with me right now, but I believe it's number 40, but I could be wrong on that. As always, I have no instructions with me right now because I write them after we do the demoed painting, so those will be later. But let's see what kind of supplies it's going to take to make this month's project. All right, so you'll have 2 bags of supplies and then a few other things in your box. First up, you're going to have a bag of sponges and the hanger cord. You're going to have a bag of various types of ribbons. So you saw in the opening that it was like a rag ribbon. So you have different laces and trimmings and a couple of ribbons and a little bit of greenery there and some jute to make a cute little bow on it as well. Of course, you'll have your wood pieces that consist of these 5 pieces. It's 2 layers of bunny, the tag, the little nose for heart for the nose, which goes upside down, and the carrot. Okay. You will have 3 pieces for whiskers. These are white wrapped wire for the whiskers. You have 3 very small pods of paint. That's for your carrot and for your nose. These are teeny tiny little pods because you do not need but a drop of paint. You'll also have a chip brush. This is a 1/2 inch chip brush, and we're going to use a new painting technique, something a little different that we've never showed you before. So you'll need a chip brush for that. This brush will probably be junk afterwards unless you keep it for the same exact reason. So you won't want to paint with this brush afterwards, but you could hang on to it so you could do the same kind of technique on another project. And then also you'll have 2 slightly bigger pods of paint here. They're still pretty small. This is in marshmallow and, sweater weather and ink. And this is what we're going to use to paint the bunny. Now, this pod here is a slightly larger pod than your paint pods. This is Vaseline, and this is what we're going to use for that different painting technique. Okay, so let's get started painting. I'm just going to take everything out of my box, and of course you can use your box as a table cover. I don't even have a table cover on my table today, so we're just going to willy-nilly this. A little more paint on our tables is not going to hurt anything, trust me. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a base layer of the sweater weather on my tag. Real quick, also, I forgot to mention, you will need a hot glue gun. We gave you a piece of hot glue. You really only need a drop of it. So we gave you a small thing of hot glue in your supply bag as well. I forgot to mention that. You'll need a hot glue gun for literally a drop of glue. You're going to need a pair of scissors, of course, baby wipes, and you're going to need either a rag or a paper towel. I'm just going to use a paper towel. And that's going to be for the new painting technique you're being shown today. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this tag and the small bunny sweater weather. Now, the bunny will probably need 2 coats of paint, and the tag, we'll see how it covers. If it covers decent, 1 coat of paint on that will be fine. Now, I'm going to use my half yellow sponge to paint both of these pieces here. And I'm just going to put a thin coat of paint on, because remember, thin coats dry fast, and then we can put a second coat on as soon as we're done with the other piece. I'm going to set this aside to dry, and then I'm going to put a coat on my tag. right. And we're gonna come back and give our bunny a second coat. And then we're gonna come in and give our tag a second coat. Okay, we're gonna set that aside and we are going to move on to the backer bunny and the nose and the carrot tag. So using my same yellow or sweater weather sponge, I'm gonna open my black paint and I'm just going to very gently dip my sponge into my black paint to grab just a tiny little bit of black, because now what I want to do is I want to make this gray. So I'm just going to do it right on the bunny head, and then I'm just going to mix it in right there on the bunny head wood piece. I really only need the outside edges of this because the one that we painted sweater weather in the beginning will cover this. Now you can take a little bit of your paint out of your containers and mix the gray if you would like, instead of doing it this way. This is really just a small piece and you only see the edges, and I thought that was too much extra work. Okay, so that's really all you have to paint. You don't have to paint the insides of any of it because it will be covered up by the sweater weather painted, off-white painted bunny. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside, and this only needs one coat. It will only need the one coat. All right, so we're gonna move on to our carrot and our nose. I'm gonna wipe my hands off real quick. Okay. So our nose, we're going to use the pink paint, and I'm just going to dip a wedge. I don't even want this big of a wedge, honestly. I'm gonna cut it even more. Now you could pull your paint out with a popsicle stick or something, but you can put the wedge right in that little pod, so there's really no need to. And then I'm just gonna pounce the paint on my nose. And this will need a couple of coats, but we have to let them dry in between. So I'm just going to set that aside, and I'm gonna move over to my carrot. Same thing with my carrot. I'm gonna open both of my pods, my green and my orange. And I'm going to, once again, I'm gonna cut my wedge in half because I don't want the whole thing for either piece. And I'm going to paint the top of my carrot with the green paint, just being careful by that scored line there. I'm just gonna run, let's see, I'm just gonna run the edge of my sponge along that scored line, keeping control of it, just like that. And then I'm gonna fill the rest of my carrot in. Carrot Top in. It is a Friday in the studio. It's February, and I don't know if you guys can hear it or not. The studio is very quiet today, but the traffic outside is nuts. It's very, very loud. Okay, so now we're gonna paint this carrot portion, and I just have half of a sponge, and I'm gonna dip it into the orange paint, but I'm going to pull off much of the orange paint. I just want it really, really thin on my sponge. So now would be a good time for you to pounce your sponge on your pizza box to get out the excess paint. I don't want to fill in that bunny bait word, right? So I don't want to like smush paint into there. I kind of want to avoid it. So with just a little tiny bit of paint on my sponge and it's soaked up into the sponge, not pooling on the surface, I'm going to glide my sponge over the top of the letters very gently. I'm getting paint on the carrot, but I'm not pushing paint into those letters. Okay, now I'm going to keep doing this until I get it covered. Taking great care over top of the letters to not push paint in them. And then you'll have to put a second coat on to darken that up because you're doing it so very lightly. But let that dry and then we'll put a second coat on it. All right, so I'm gonna come up with care up against the carrot top and just run my sponge along that scored line. And then come in and fill the rest. And then I'm gonna let it dry, but while I let that dry, I'm gonna come back to the top of the carrot and I'm gonna do another coat of green. Now you can get as fancy with this as you want. If you want to put different streaks of green in there, you could darken your green with your black, or you can lighten your green with your white, your sweater weather color. So let's do that here. I'm gonna just take my same sponge and I'm gonna dip it in my white paint just a tiny little bit. It's almost like you can't even see it's on there. And then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna do some stripes. And I'm just gonna keep swiping till that blends that sweater weather down to a lighter shade of green. And what it's doing is it's picking up my still wet green paint and it's blending it. So that's what that looks like if you do that. Okay, let's go ahead and put the second coat on our orange carrot here. Once again, we're just going to go really lightly over top of our letters. And then just make sure we get the rest filled in. Okay, there's our carrot. And on my screen, it's kind of hard to see that bunny bait, but when I look at it with my bare eyes, I can see it just fine. So it might end up looking different on the video once it's done. Sometimes when I look at the screen, things don't look the same as they do at the end video. So I'm sure that's the case here. Okay, let's put another coat of paint on our little nose. And then we're just gonna set that aside. And I am done with my small pods of paint there, and I am done with the sweater weather paint. All right, we still need our black, and we're gonna use our last yellow sponge for that. And we're gonna open our chip brush. And we're gonna need our pot of Vaseline. And then we're gonna bring our tag back in front of us. So we're gonna take the chip brush and we're just gonna dip it into the Vaseline. And we're gonna take and run the brushes along the edge of the pod so we don't have globs and globs of Vaseline on that, okay? And then we're just gonna take our chip brush and in different areas around our tag, we're gonna swipe on some Vaseline. Now you'll have to reload, but it doesn't matter where you put it. Of course, you wanna hit the edges because what we're doing is we're gonna make this a chippy painted tag and it's going to look vintagey. That's kind of the style of this, right? It's like a vintagey tag. It's got the rag bow on it. And so we want the paint job to look old as well. Now, it's gonna be impossible to see on mine for you, but if you tip your tag into the light, you'll be able to see where you put your Vaseline. And if you want to put it in some more areas, then you can see where you need to put it. Now remember, your bunny's going to sit right in the middle, so you don't have to concentrate too much on all of that. Okay. That's all I'm gonna do. You feel free to do more if you would like. And I'm just gonna wipe my Vaseline out of my brush the best I can. And I'm gonna put mine in a bag, a Ziploc bag, and I'm gonna label it a Vaseline brush so that I know what to use it for. Okay, now you're going to take your yellow sponge, your last half yellow sponge, and your black paint, and you're going to paint this tag black. You're going right over top of your Vaseline. Don't worry about it moving around. And it's gonna look like it's not gonna cover that great on those areas, and that's exactly what's happening. It's not gonna cover great on those areas. That Vaseline is preventing the paint from penetrating through to the wood. Okay, now we're gonna let this dry and we're gonna put a second coat on it. We cannot blow dry this at this point because the blow dryer will just heat the Vaseline up and we don't wanna do that. So we're gonna let this air dry, and in the meanwhile, we're gonna start building our bow while this dries. So set this aside and let's get started on our bow. Now make sure that your hands are clean because you don't want to be handling your fabric ribbons with painted hands. While we wait for that to dry, we're also going to work on assembly of the bunny and the whiskers and the nose, okay? So at this point, you'll want to get your hot glue gun plugged in and get it heating up. All right, I forgot to mention super glue in your kit. You will have super glue. So we're gonna take our super glue and we're just gonna run a line of glue around our bunny head back. Of course, in the studio, I just use super glue that's left open and around from other projects. So and I needed more. But you will get a full tube in your kit, so no worries there. And of course, I have to do surgery on mine because sometimes they get glued shut. All right. And then we're just gonna flip that over. We're gonna center it on the backer. And we're gonna push down because pressure activates super glue. And it only takes a few seconds. Great, that looks good. We're gonna take our wires, our wire whiskers, and we're going to cross them on the bunny where we want them. They're wires, so you'll be able to move them around after you get them on there. And then we're gonna take a dab of our hot glue. My gun is ready. And we're gonna put it right in the middle there. And then we're gonna press our nose on it. And I want my heart to be upside down, but you can put your heart on whichever way you want. In my head, my bunny nose heart was upside down. Okay. So there's that. How cute is that? All right, we're gonna set him aside. And we're gonna set our carrot aside with it as well. And then we're gonna move on to our ribbon. See what I meant about hot glue? You literally only needed a drop. So I'm gonna turn my glue gun off. And I'm gonna come over to my rag bow. Now, my rag bow, you're gonna find a small zip tie in there. Just set that aside. And then set aside your, you have a long length of jute. So I want you to take about this much, which is about 6 inches. And we're gonna cut 6 inches off of that because that's what we're gonna use to tie this on to the bow onto the jute in the end, okay? The hanger portion of the jute in the end. All right, so I'm gonna unfold my ribbons here and separate them, and then I'm gonna fold them separately. So this is my gray ribbon. I'm gonna fold it in half, and then I'm gonna fold it up like a taco, and I'm gonna take my scissor and I'm gonna cut from the folded edge up and out towards the corners to trim off those. I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Fold it up like a taco, cut from the folded edge up and out, and then that gives me 2 pieces, and they're dovetailed on the ends. That's just cutting that V out of there. That's what we did there. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this one. I'm gonna fold it in half, then I'm gonna fold it up like a taco. Folded edge, cut up and out. Same thing on this end, up and out. Okay. So now I'm gonna take and I'm going to build my ribbon cluster. And I'm going to just pile these ribbons on here. Let's reverse that. Okay, let's make sure they're centered. That looks pretty good. And then I'm just going to start putting these pieces of fabric, lace, and trimmings in here. Now, if you have a super long piece, just take it and fold it and then cut it so it's cut in half. And I'm just going to start making X's with this stuff. Sometimes you will only have one piece, and so you won't have to cut it in half at all. So we got some pink. Let's throw the pink in there. We have another piece of lace. Let's cut that in half. And we've got some gold trimmings. If they're long, cut them in half. I like this one a lot. And then we got one more. This is this bright yellow gold. These are come folded on a spool or I don't know what they call them, skein maybe. So that's why they have the creases in them. You'll just have to bend them backwards and get that crease out. All right, so that's that right there. So I'm gonna take my zip tie now. Now notice I didn't put this piece of jute in yet. I'm gonna take my zip tie and I'm gonna run it under everything. And I'm gonna cinch it together. This is a pretty big bundle, so it might take a second to get that cinched. Okay, so once you kind of got it cinched, you can pick it up, move the zip tie head to the back, so the clasp is at the back. And before you tighten it down all the way, take your little 6-inch piece of jute and run it underneath the zip tie, okay? And just in the middle. You only need a small section because you're just gonna tie a knot in that. Tighten that zip tie down as tight as you can and then trim the tail off. And then you've got your rag bow. Now we're gonna take our greenery piece and we're gonna shove that greenery piece underneath that zip tie as well. And that should just slide in like right alongside the jute. Okay. All right. Now we're gonna take our longer piece of jute and we're just gonna wrap it around the center. I'm gonna do 2 wraps and make sure that it's even, the tails are even. Okay, so that kind of covers that zip tie. And then you're gonna bring the tails forward and you're just gonna tie a little bow, just like you're tying your shoes, basically. Just like that. And there's your rag bow. And then you have your piece of jute back here, and this is what we're gonna do to tie it on to the tag at the end. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to putting the second coat of paint on our tag. Make sure it's completely dry, and then you're going to just put another coat of paint on. Now it's gonna look like it's not covering, and that's exactly what's supposed to be happening here, so don't try to make it cover. Okay, so that's our second coat of paint. Now you can see it's not covering in these spots, and that's right, we don't want it to cover. So at this point you can dry it with a hairdryer or you can let it dry. But we cannot move on until it's completely dried. So come back to the video when your tag is completely dry. Okay, my tag is completely dry, so now I'm going to take my paper towel, or once again, if you have just an old rag, you can use an old rag, and we're gonna just start wiping away the Vaseline. And you can see that that's going to reveal spots of the foundation paint, that sweater weather that we painted. So it prevented the black from coating the tag, and it makes it look just like it's an old paint job and the paint is scraped off.
think that's all of it. You can kind of tip it into the light and you can see if there's any raised areas of Vaseline yet that you haven't scraped off. And that's what your tag should look like. Isn't that a really neat process, you guys? That's so cool. And you can use it on anything that you want to make look aged and like the paint is chipping. So any kind of project that you're painting and you want this look on, that's how you do it. Okay, so now we're going to take our super glue and we're gonna glue our bunny on. Okay, so at some point in here, I realized that I didn't want to hook my carrot up the way that I had originally intended. So you're going to have an extra piece of jute in your bag and you're going to wonder why. And that's going to be to hook the carrot up to the sign. Now, I have decided I don't want my carrot just floating free. I think I'm going to glue them down. But I'm going to go ahead and attach everything first and see how it lays before I make that decision. So at this point, I'm going to take my thin jute and I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to fold it in half and I'm going to push it through the front side of the hole in the carrot. And then I'm going to pull the ends through that loop to make a little bit of a lark's head or a cow hitched knot on it. And I don't know where I'm gonna leave this at yet, okay? So we're gonna have to look at that and see how we like it. Now we're gonna take the thick piece of jute and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna fold it in half. We're gonna take the loop, we're gonna push it through the tag from the front to the back, and then we're gonna pull the ends through that loop and snug it down. And once again, that's the cow hitching or a lark's head knot. And then we're gonna take the ends and we're gonna tie an overhand knot in them. And then we're just gonna cut the ends off. So this is your hanger. You can make that as short or as long as you want it to be. And then we're gonna take our bow, our rag bow. Yes, I have not done my carrot yet. I do not know where I want that quite yet. So I'm gonna do my bow first, my rag bow. I want my greenery on the left-hand side. And I'm gonna take that little bit of jute that I put in there and I'm gonna fish it through the hole of the tag because there's plenty of room there. And I'm going to flip this over and I'm just gonna tie that on there. Just a double knot, just like that. You can trim the ends, but there shouldn't be too much there to trim. Enough to tie, but not enough to be in the way. Oh, that is so cute. So cute. Now, if you wanted to, you could use your dab of hot glue and you can glue that bow down to the tag, just a little spot of glue there. All right, now let's figure out where we want this carrot to go. You know it has to go behind the bow, but we want to be able to see it. So I didn't want to glue it way up there because I didn't think I'd see it. And I don't want it hanging loose because I don't want it to hang down over top of the bunny. So, yep, that's what I'm gonna do. I haven't even secured the jute in yet, but I want to make sure that I have control of where that carrot is. So I'm going to go ahead and put it where I want it to be seen. And then I'm gonna lift up the edges a little bit and I'm just gonna squirt a little bit of super glue back there, and then I'm gonna push it down right where I want it to stay. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab the ends of it and I'm just going to feed them through the hole in my tag. And I'm going to come around and I'm just going to tie them to the hanger there. I'm just going to double knot it and trim it off. You won't be able to see it. And then I'm going to take, let me see, I'm going to see if I'm going to take and make a really small bow out of what's left of my jute. Just a small little bow. Cute. And then I'm going to take a little dab of hot glue. And I'm going to glue it right to the top of the carrot. Just arrange your bow where you want it. You can pull those wired ribbons into place, and if you want to hot glue that down on an angle or however you can do that, that would be ideal if you want it to be in one place. Arrange your whiskers. Now you could do little loops in your whiskers if you wanted to with the end of a pencil or something about 1/4 inch around there, but I'm going to leave my whiskers just kind of out there. You could even give your bunny some freckles if you wanted to, or eyes, but I like him just the way he is, or just the way she is. And there you go. There is your project for the month. That is stinking cute, you guys. And I love this chippy effect here. It's very easy to do, very unique, just something all around different. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this tutorial, this project. Take care, and we'll see you next month.